In this video, we want to show how the book works through the Manova, and we're going to do the example that begins on page 137. Now, they do some background work that I wanted to just touch base with you so you would understand how they arrived at the transform data that they did. Two of the data sets that we're going to use are Education 2 and RINCOM 2, or the education level and the income level. And they've already transformed those to Education 2 and RINCOM 2. In the paragraph there that begins under Methods and Spss How To, they explain what they did to transform education into Education 2, and that was that they removed everyone that had 6 years of education or less. And so that's how Education 2 was transformed. Then you can read on page 36 and following how they transformed income level to income level 2. And they show the process they went through, and you can repeat that if that's something that you want practice to do. One of the other things that they discuss is 6.7, and they don't really describe how they got to that. And so now we want to look at how we want to produce chart figure 6.7. So we're going to go up to Analyze, and we're going to come down to Descriptive, and again we're going to go to Explore. As you see, we have this set up where we have our dependent list is going to be RINCOM 2 and Education 2. And notice these are both quantitative data. Those are our dependent list. And then our respondent list, or our factor list, which is our independent variable, is going to be the gender, or it's labeled sex. And so we're going to follow through with that. Then we go up to our statistics, and in our statistics, you're going to see that we have descriptive chosen, and then we'll say continue. And then we'll come back and we want to go into our plots. In plots, we can leave the stem and leaf, just get a picture of it, but we want to make sure that the normality plots with test is checked. And that's what we want to do. In that one, then we're going to say continue, and we have everything ready to go that we want to do, and then we're going to say OK. And you can see then that what is produced is our processing our descriptive data, and then we get down to what is in figure 6.7, and this is the KS statistic and the SW statistic, and notice that they're all significant. And so as they say in their discussion, that's not normal, because when it's significant there's non-normality here, but the Manova is pretty robust to this violation. But you have to be careful, and you will want to make sure that you discuss this when you report your information. So that's how they got to figure 6.7. And then we want to talk about how they produce the scatter plot, which they mention, and again don't show, they just discuss it. So let's go back to our information, and we want then to go up to scatter plot. We want to go to graphs, and we want to go to the legacy dialogues. And we're going to come down to scatter dot, and in this one we want to check the matrix scatter, and we want to define that. This is a little different than when you see this discussed in the book, and how it's set up where it's discussing doing this, because now the newer version has y-axis and x-axis. So you could I put income on y-axis and education on x-axis. It doesn't matter. Those are our two quantitative variables. We could put them either way. And then down in our columns, we put job satisfaction, sat job. And so we're ready to go there. And then in titles, everything is good. So we just say OK. And then you realize that we have this sort of elliptical pattern. Again, box plots are very subjective, and so we see that there is some sense of ellipticality here, but again, it's enough to go by with the Manova. So that's how they produce the scatter plot that they discuss and say it's along with correlation. So then we go to the textbook to see how they proceed from there. So now we're going to go up to Analyze, and we're going to come down to correlate. And we're going to do the bivariate correlation because we want to look at the correlation between our two independent variables. And so we want to move Rincom 2 and Education 2 over into our variables. And everything is ready to go in our options. Things are fine, so we just want to say OK. And when that comes up, then we get the correlations that they show on figure 6.8. Notice mine are backwards from the way they put theirs in, but it's the same information. We have a weak correlation, fairly weak correlation, but it is significant. And but again, that's not going to impact the Manova as we move forward. So now that we found that our test of what we're in meeting the assumptions of, we want to now move forward with the multivariate procedure. So now we go to analyze, and we're going to come down to general linear model. Now before, when we were doing the ANOVA, we used the univariate, but for the Manova, because we have several variates, we're going to use the multivariate. And so we're going to click in here. Now in your discussion in your textbook, this is again where version 25 is different from the version they're using in the textbook. And when you want to talk about setting the means, you want to go into the EM of means. And you want to display the means for sex and sat job, and that will be sufficient at that point. And so we'll say continue, and then we want to go down to options, because in the textbook the means and the options show up together. So for our version, we want to go to options, and notice we've got descriptive statistics, estimates, effect size, and homogeneity test all clicked, and that's ready to go. Once we have finished this, we want to say continue. And then one further idea is that we want to go into post hoc, and notice that we want the post hoc for just sat job. And then we want, for this one, we want to use the Sheffey, because for multivariate, the Sheffey is the best one to use. Remember, before we use the Bonferroni, for this one, we want to use the Sheffey. And then we say continue, and now we say OK, and we get our results. And so let's now look at our results. We get our, again, our N, we get our descriptive statistics. The first thing we want to look at is Box's test of equality of covariance matrices. And notice that it's not significant. Therefore, we can use the Wilks lambda as our multivariate version statistic that we want to use. Then when we come down to the multivariate test, or the Manova summary table, we want to come here and look at our significance levels, and we want to choose the Wilks lambda. And notice that sex is significant. We come down to Wilks lambda. Sex set job is significant, and so there's significantly affects the combined descriptive variables, dependent variables that we're looking at. And then we come down here and notice that the interaction between the two is not significant, and so they don't affect the combined dependent variables. Then we want to move on down, and we go to the test between subjects and effects, or that's our univariate ANOVA. And this is very helpful here. We again come down and we see that your gender is significantly impacting your income, but your gender does not impact significantly your education. And the same thing is your level of job satisfaction is significantly impacting your income, but your job satisfaction is not significantly impacting your education. So we see something going on, and let's look to see what it is that's causing this difference. And so just like in the ANOVA, when we had a significant finding, we did our post hoc, we do that with our Manova. And so now we want to come down and we want to get to our post hoc test, and here are our Sheffeys. And so we now look at job satisfaction and income, and we had moderately satisfied, a little dissatisfied, very dissatisfied. And that's one of the ways, are a little dissatisfied, very dissatisfied. And so we look over here and we find that there's a significant level between those who are moderately satisfied and those who are very satisfied in income level. And we see that repeated here, very satisfied, moderately satisfied. There's the one significant. No other relationships are significant. So the difference that we were finding in that impact had to do with the level of being very satisfied and moderately satisfied. So we would have to say that being very satisfied has a significant impact on your income level as opposed to being moderately satisfied. And that's the report that we get. Then we follow up. We have the finalized information that's given for the information. But that's then how you would look at your results for the Manova, and then you can follow through on presenting the results that are presented there on page 144. But those are going to be the steps that you would follow to complete your assignments for figuring the Manova.